golf instructor Steve Bishop out at Rio Salado Golf Course. In today's question and answer session, I'm going to go ahead and answer one of the questions that I received recently off of my comment form. And this question comes from Greg. He says, I have a problem scooping at the bottom and tend to hang back on my right foot. I also have a hard time with approach shots and short pitches. Can you give me some tips on not scooping so that I can at least stop doing that? Basically, what you're describing is a scoop where at impact you are trying to get the right hand to go underneath the left, which opens up the club face a little bit and adds more loft. You're either doing this because you're trying to get the ball up in the air, or because you're actually trying to hit just the ball and stopping at the ball, trying to correct for where the club face is trying to go. Now, what I find interesting about your question also, Greg, is that you also mentioned that you're staying back on your right leg. So what I generally find is that people who are both scooping and hanging back on their right leg, they're in that frame of mind of trying to get the ball up in the air. And this is probably especially true with your driver. So believe it or not, one of the things that I would say to you is, especially with your driver, look to get more loft on your driver. That's the first thing. Because I find way too many folks with stiff shafts and lofts on their club, like a 10 degree or a 9 degree, for people that don't even have a 80 mile per hour swing speed. Those folks are really struggling to get the ball up in the air, and they're going to be trying to make this swing that basically tries to get it up in the air. That's going to promote some scooping if you're really trying to help that ball up. So you probably hear this advice all the time: hit down on the ball, where you want to try to basically make a steeper approach and trying to drive that ball into the ground. Commonly, one of the common drills for this would be to set the ball in a divot here, like I've got this ball in a divot, and try to dig that ball out of that divot. I personally don't necessarily prescribe to the idea that you need to hit down on the ball. I'm more of a forward person. I would really like to see people try to swing through the ball. And that will lead me to my first drill, which is where I basically have this tee that I place out in front of the ball, about a good, 8 inches, okay? And the object of where I've got this tee is to hit both the golf ball and the tee with the club face, okay? What this is promoting me doing is making sure that I'm driving that club head low to the ground through the entire swing. And that's going to help, instead of trying to flip the ball, instead of trying to get the ball up in the air, you're forced to make a release that is lower to the ground. And by doing so, you tend to increase a little bit of the club head speed, and you're also creating that pop to the ball, which gets more spin on it and makes it go airborne. Which I think is really the goal that people are trying to get to when they're hitting down, is they're trying to impart more spin on the ball to get that ball to fly. The other thing that this does with this particular drill is it forces you to move your weight forward. You're having to basically make sure that you swing further past the ball, which is going to force your whole upper body to get further in front and onto your left foot, where you're going to end up finishing your swing. So that's going to get rid of both of those two problems, where you're scooping. Obviously, if I scoop, I'm going to miss that tee on the ground. And second of all, if I stay back here on my right, I'm also keeping my upper body too far away to hit that tee properly. So having this tee out here about 6 or 8 inches out in front of the ball, and trying to make sure you make contact with both the ball and the tee, is really a good drill to eliminate scooping. There's another drill that I prescribe to folks who are having some problems with scooping, and that is where you basically take the club by the hosel end and you try to swing it. Now, when you're making this swing from the hosel end of the club, what you're listening for is a whoosh sound, and you're going to hear it when you swing. I don't know if you can hear that on camera or not, but there's a definite whoosh sound that comes to that. And I'm listening for where in space does the most of that whoosh sound come from. Since I'm trying to eliminate quitting as one of the other possibilities that's causing this casting or the scooping, I want to make sure that I'm accelerating all the way past the golf ball. Okay, so I'm going to listen for that whoosh sound, and I'm going to make sure that it's happening past where my golf ball placement would be. So there's my golf ball. I'm going to make my swing, and that whoosh sound maximized right about right here. I heard the most whoosh right here. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and flip the club around, and again, I'm going to listen for that whoosh sound. It's going to be a little bit higher pitch because now I'm swinging the club head, but I can still hear it. Now I'm going to set up to the golf ball, and I'm still going to try to imitate that whoosh sound happening after the ball. What this does is essentially make sure that I am making a faster swing speed past the ball. So I'm accelerating until I've maximized my acceleration past the ball. Now, in order for me to have that maximization, I must still continue to be leading with my hands rather than leading with the club head. And that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about a breakdown of the wrist so that the club head passes the hands when you try to reach to the golf ball. In a good golf swing, we don't see that. We still see the hands leading the club head. So this drill of making sure that we listen for the whoosh sound happening after the ball is going to basically force my hands to continue leading at least past the ball. Now those first two drills, they were what I would call kind of old-fashioned teaching. They work, they're proven, they do it time and time again. For those of you interested at all in my 5-step plan, there's something interesting about the finish that I think if you observe it, you'll understand that the finish can sometimes tell you that you've done this, flipping or casting. And that is, when you look at the finish of those people who flip or cast, you're going to find that the right forearm, or whatever the trailing arm is, when it finishes, you're going to find that the forearm, right forearm, is facing basically horizontal to the ground. What you can do is make sure that on your finish, you are finishing with your elbow pointing down towards the ground. Some of you may have noticed or have seen that video that I did about the elbows pointing to the ground, and that was kind of to help people fix their release. This particular one is basically along the same lines. We're just talking about keeping that right elbow also pointing to the ground, whereas the video that I did before was basically about the left elbow where it was placed. So if you're looking to work within the 5-step framework that I teach, the thing that I try to get students to do is, again, basically get that right elbow pointing down to the ground so that the right forearm is much more vertical rather than horizontal.